How old is SpongeBob, really? I mean, he works a full-time job, owns a house, pays for Gary's healthcare, probably, but he also religiously watches Mermaid Man shows, plays with jellyfish nets, and still can't pass a basic driving test. Is he just a grown man acting like a kid? Or maybe he's a kid pretending to be a grown man? At some point, this stopped being just a running joke and started looking like a real question. I mean, the show itself teases us in SpongeBob's Big Birthday Blowout. Like they want us to keep guessing. And while the show has never given us a straight answer, it dropped some clues over the years. I did my research and fact-checked every single detail I found just so we have the most accurate answer. Yes, I'm that determined. But fair warning, the answer might not be what you think. The first and the most obvious clues is something you've probably already heard. The whole driver's license thing. Yeah, it's pretty much an open secret at this point. We get the glimpse of SpongeBob's driver's license all the way back in Season 1, Sleepy Time. There's a scene about SpongeBob driving race cars like a maniac in his dream and finally getting his license. And if you freeze frame it, you'll see his birthday, July 14th, 1986. That's our first clue. Also, happy birthday SpongeBob, though it's a bit late now. You see, the thing about this episode is that it's a dream sequence, where everyone including SpongeBob could just get what he wants. So, a lot of people really didn't believe in this license. Except one season later we get the episode No Free Rides, where he actually gets handed a real license by Mrs. Puff. And the date? Still, July 14th, 1986. And since this episode isn't a dream sequence, it's pretty safe to say the show recognizes July 14th as SpongeBob's birthday. The only concerns about this, however, throughout the modern season, the show has shown SpongeBob's driver's license again, quite a few times too. Like here, for example, is his driver's license from Season 6, Gone. And this is another one from Season 11, Girls' Night Out. I noticed that they removed the birth date from the license. I guess somewhere along the way, someone at Nickelodeon realized that details might tell SpongeBob's age, which contradicts the Hillenburg wish to keep SpongeBob's age ambiguous. But then again, they didn't change that detail in the early seasons, so we'll go with 1986 as our first clues. However, things also get tricky from here. Knowing when SpongeBob was born is only half the puzzle. The real problem is figuring out when the show actually takes place. Because if we know that, we could do the math. That's easy. But SpongeBob lives in this weird, timeless void. Characters don't really age, the timeline never really progressing, and the show itself never gives us a solid year. Well, they kinda do, actually, once, and that's where this timeline theory starts, and falls apart. One of the most popular timeline theories starts with an episode from Season 1, SB-129. You know, that one episode no one understands? Psst, that was pretty cool. You should definitely watch it. But if you still don't remember it, this is the one where Squidward accidentally locks himself in the freezer at the Krusty Krab and wakes up 2,000 years in the future. Yeah, that one. Now here's the important part. Right when Squidward was trapped in the freezer, the French narrator guy says,
2,000 years later.
And if you pause the scene after that, there's a calendar that shows the date, March 6th, 4017. Which means that present-day events of SpongeBob, everything leading up to Squidward's freezer meltdown, must have taken place on March 6th, 2017. Years after it's the episode actually coming out. So there it is, right? He was born in 1986, it's 2017, that makes SpongeBob 31 years old. Mystery solved, yeah! Well, not exactly. Because that same episode that confirmed SpongeBob's birth date, No Free Rides, also shows that his license expires in 2003. Meaning this show took place somewhere before the 2000s. And now you might be thinking, well, why didn't you just say that then? Why do you bother bringing up this episode? Because if the driver's license is valid for about 5 years, that would mean SpongeBob is 14 years old when the show premiered. So unless Mrs. Puff is handing out 12-year driver's licenses, the theory is not adding up. Well, no wonder the kid fails the driving test so much. Also, that would mean Mr. Krabs is hiring someone under 17 to work a full-time job at Krusty Krab. That's a serious crime. But then again, Krabs won't bother thinking about stuff like that. We've seen him do way worse things in the series. Anyway, back to our investigation again. If his license expires in 2003, then the show has to take place before that, not in 2017. Which means the whole year 2017 theory completely falls apart. You know, I think the time jump for Squidward isn't exactly 2,000 years. It's just around 2,000. The French narrator guy just said 2,000 because it's easier to say and not to look peculiar. But whatever, maybe the calendar itself is just a gag from the animator. Who knows? So if that timeline doesn't hold, where do we look next? Well, weirdly enough, it's not an episode from the main show. It's from the spin-off that no one asked for, but somehow gave us the biggest clue yet. Yes, I'm talking about Camp Coral, the CG spin-off from 2021 that was, yeah, kinda mid. But whatever your feelings are on the show itself, it does give us one solid piece of information. In Camp Coral, SpongeBob is shown to be 10 years old. I can't really confirm the other people's ages, but that's not interesting. What does interest me, on the other hand, is that we're shown a cute baby version of Pearl. Yes, in diapers too. That's the key to our mysteries. Now, if you remember season 4 of the main show, specifically the episode Whale of a Birthday, in that episode SpongeBob is given a huge task by Krabs to figure out what Pearl would like for a birthday present. Her 16th birthday to be exact. That indicates the main show was happening exactly 15 years after the Camp Coral timeline. And if SpongeBob was 10 years old during Camp Coral, he would be around 25 in the first episode. Which makes perfect sense, right? SpongeBob being in his mid-20s lines up with everything that we see. He's old enough to live alone, old enough to hold a full-time job, files taxes, probably, and still kind of acts like a hyperactive kid on cereal. That's just him being him, a fully grown adult sponge who never really grew up. Yep, Camp Coral might not be the canon we want, but it's the canon we need for this mystery. So while the show never says it out loud, the math checks out. SpongeBob is about 25 to 26 years old during the events of the main series, which means SpongeBob is 10 years older than Pearl when he's taking her to the prom in The Chaperone.
But as far as disasters go, that was really fun.
That's kind of weird to think about now. Shouldn't have said that. However, I just realized something interesting. Let's say the show starts when SpongeBob is 25, maybe 26. Fast forward 3 seasons and boom, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. This is where the future timeline theory kicks in. In the movie, the story opens up about Krusty Krabs that's about to open his second establishment. And when SpongeBob is getting ready for the day, he says this.
Well, let's ask my wall of 374 consecutive Employee of the Month award.
374 Employee of the Month awards. Let that sink in. SpongeBob flips patties tirelessly for more than 31 years, until the age of 56, to get a chance of promotion to become a store manager. That's a crazy detail, considering half of the plot of the Goofy Goober movie is about SpongeBob and Patrick trying to act like a grown-up and stop being childish. It all kind of makes sense now. That whole Goofy Goober meltdown, it wasn't just about the manager's job, that was a midlife crisis. 30 years in the same job, overlooked and underappreciated, binging ice cream to escape reality. Old Man Sponge has been through it all. And weirdly enough, we never see him as manager again, or Krusty Krab number 2. Which makes the movie feel like a true finale, an arc about SpongeBob's future. Everything else after that, maybe that's all just flashbacks. On the other hand, I know some of you might disagree with this theory because many of us don't recognize Camp Coral as the real timeline, and how its separate timeline contradicts so many canon details from the main show. That's alright. Most of you might just choose to believe that 1986 is SpongeBob's birth date, and that's actually kinda justified. You see, the initial idea for SpongeBob came from the illustrated book drawn by Hillenburg himself in 1984. Well, at the time it wasn't SpongeBob yet, it was someone called Bob the Sponge. So maybe the first idea of the square-shaped sponge comes from 1986, hence why Hillenburg decided to put 1986 as his official birth date. With that being said, that would mean that SpongeBob is 39 years old this year. Older than some of us who grew up watching SpongeBob back in the day. That's kinda heartwarming, actually. And that's pretty much our answer. SpongeBob is 25, 39, pick your answer. But at least we know he's old enough to fry a Krabby Patty, but still young enough to fail his boating test again and again. Speaking about sponges, you know they don't age like we do, right? They kind of exist. Forever. Some deep-sea sponges have been alive for over 1,000 years, which means if you apply that kind of lifespan to SpongeBob, being 25 or 39 is kind of like being in preschool. And maybe that's why everyone in Bikini Bottom treats him that way. He's young for a sponge. But then again, we have that one random moment in The Great Patty Caper. SpongeBob narrates the whole episode to his grandson, who is also a sponge. And SpongeBob himself, shown to have gray hair, beard, glasses, and fragile. He even says it happened 75 years ago, which means SpongeBob is about 100 like a normal human? Which also means, yeah, he's not some ageless sea entity who could live for 1,000 years. I don't know, man. Or maybe the answer is simpler than that. Maybe SpongeBob doesn't have an age, because he doesn't need one. He's just whatever age the episode needs him to be, and honestly, that might be the most SpongeBob thing of all. Weird, right? But if you think SpongeBob's age is weird enough, wait till you see the inside of his house. Because we did an entire breakdown on the layout of 124 Conch Street, room by room, through every door, to figure out how does SpongeBob's house actually work. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go watch it. Especially if you've ever wondered how a tiny pineapple holds a gym, a library, a garage, and maybe a bum living in the drywall. I'll see you next time.